Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be going over another Art 2 boss rematch. And this time we're going over Tse-Tse Snaketail, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But this has to be the most abysmal rematch I have done. And I know a lot of people don't like the Jade Oni rematch just because of how long it takes. But I'm pretty sure it's because they dropped decks. Because if I'm comparing all the other fights and looking how many rounds it takes and comparing it to this one, they definitely take a while. So I think that has to be like the corresponding thing that's around why they take so long. Maybe there's something else, there's another reasoning behind it. But essentially these boss rematches, especially this one, is a yikes. Now you're probably wondering, Armin, why is it a yikes? Well, let's go over what he does and how this boss rematch goes. Now keep in mind this guy does drop a themes and decks, and essentially at the end of round one he can polymorph into 4 different forms, right? And you have to kill him twice. So once you kill one of his forms, you have to kill him again. And the thing is, he can be the same form twice. So for example, we have all these forms listed on this slide, and I'm not gonna really go over each one, just, well, I probably will, but like I'll do a TLDR version of it because, yeah. And each form has different HP, so you have to keep that in mind. One of the forms you can't even kill, you just have to like deal with it till he essentially hits. But honestly, it's the best form because you can just use petrifaction, you can use weaknesses, you can do all that stuff. He has 2 other minions in this fight if we quickly go over them. He has a Goliath Bruiser in that fight. It doesn't have any cheats, but it does have annoying spells. It has, I believe, Legion Shield. It has Taunt. It has like bottom path of like those Cold Iron spells. And I believe it's a chromatic shield of whoever he hits. So whoever he's across, he will just do a chromatic shield of whenever he hits them. He also has, I believe, Fortify, so he's just kind of annoying. Mainly the annoying thing that he does, in my opinion, is Taunt. I still believe he should not have Taunt, or maybe make it so like, I don't know. But the Taunt is a really only annoying thing that he can do. Now, he does have another boss in that fight, which is called the Starburst Spider. The Starburst Spider is really not that bad. He just has like blades and stuff. Doesn't really shield. He does have like Zeus, I believe, in his deck, which is kind of weird, but it does a lot of damage, so be careful of who's across of the spider. And yeah, it will do a lot of damage depending on who you are. And that's about it. But let's go back to TT, which is like the whole main premise of this rematch. So he has his elephant form. Essentially, he puts at the beginning of his round, he shows you 3 different blades, and he will clear them off instantly. But you have to memorize those blades, because if you don't memorize those blades, you won't know of what to hit him with. Basically, you have to hit the blades that he does. You have to hit in order of those blades. So he'll put like a death blade, and then like some other schools. You have to hit him in those specific order, and then he will get rid of his aura, and then you can kill him. That's basically the essential polymorph. What's his whole spiel of the elephant polymorph? Move on to Lion. The Lion form, he has a lot of HP, and he has a spell called Catnap, which is on like a couple of different pets. I believe it's like 1 or 2, but you have to make sure that he is stunned when you kill him, and the way that you have to make sure he's stunned is essentially hit him with anything, a wand hit, whatever, and then make sure the next person kills him. Turn order actually matters because I've had it glitch out 3-4 times. And another thing is, this fight is kind of glitchy. I don't know why. Do not stagger join this fight. It will ruin your day. I've lost so many boss rematches to TT because of bugs and issues. And yeah, so make sure turn order matters and stuff like that, because if, let's say, person in slot 1 hits him and then it's TT's turn, you will just kind of be like, hey, like your stun's out, and then whoever kills will kind of glitch it out. So he'll say like, oh, I need to switch polymorphs and stuff like that, but in reality he just heals it up, and then he just kind of chalks it up. So basically, with the strat that I made, you're fine, don't worry about that. Move on to his other polymorph. He has a spider polymorph. Essentially, you can't kill him. He blades up for 3 rounds. He does the same blade, but it's stackable, and you kind of want to get rid of that, or you'll get nuked. That's why we're using petrifaction, of course, and everything like that, and putting weaknesses, because even with a lot of resist, in one of our teammates still was getting hit with like 1.1, 1.2. It does a lot. He basically hits you Dark Fiend, at the end of the round. So after he does all 3 of his blades, he'll hit you with Dark Fiend, and he will kill himself. That's the one form that is kind of nice because you don't really have to try as much, and he'll just kill himself after he basically does all 3 blades and casts Dark Fiend. So there's that. Then lastly, we have the Rhino form. Rhino form essentially is at the once he polymorphs, once it's his turn, he gives himself 3 blades. He gives himself like 2 different supercharges, and you can get like a 130, 140 supercharge blade. And if he's first, he can kind of nuke you. He can hit you with like a King Art or something like that. That will basically do like 10k. I mean, that happened to me, and there's nothing really I could do. You know, I lost a turn priority, and I would pull him in different slots, but then we get the issue of like having turn order with this lion polymorph. Yeah, so basically this fight is abysmal. I like the concept. The concept was done really well of having the different forms. It's just that like I don't like the lion polymorph because I can't make them. They should just make it so it stuns them for 2 rounds instead of 1. I think that will kind of just like fix everything realistically. Like I don't mind the taunts on the other enemies, because if I can pull TT in a different position like slot 2 or 3, then I won't have an issue with this fight. It's just that catnap forces me to have him in slot 1, because if I can't predict what slot he's going to be in if I pull another boss. So we're kind of forced to pull TT first. But now that's out the way, you guys see some footage in the background too, of course, time to time. What's the actual strat? Now keep in mind, I want you guys to keep an open mind. Now there's a lot of people who are doing different strategies for this fight, mainly predominantly just doing flea strat, where if you don't get the polymorph you want, you just kind of restart. I've seen people with slides that have like 11 or 12 around. It should not take that long, realistically. And this video is going to be longer than all the other rematches because of the fact is I kind of have to teach you a little bit more about this fight, which I kind of do like, right? I'm going a little bit more in depth, but for the average person trying to get their boss rematches, they're probably going to be like, what the hell is this? So let's go over the strat. Now I know this looks like a lot of writing, but you have to make specific builds for this fight, and definitely if you want to use other builds or other strats, you guys can go for it. But this is what worked for me. I have been getting constant like 6 to 7 rounds. The only time it's a 7-round fight is if you get a spider form on his when he comes back alive, because remember, you have to kill him twice. That means you have to deal with 2 different random forms. Now essentially the TLDR of this whole box that I made, you are basically sirensing and killing all 3 of them, and then after that you're basically just killing his second form with the Turmoil Oni. That's the TLDR version of this. Now you're probably looking at this like, what is this, like code, like rainbow stuff? It's just so you can keep in mind of what form is what. So for example, this first round is always going to be the same. It won't change or anything like that, because you're basically rocking a 7-card deck on all your characters. So keep that in mind. And then after you figure out what polymorph he is, you kind of discard accordingly. So you are kind of like cycling a lot in this fight, but you shouldn't deck fail. You should only deck fail if you're not drawing a card every round. If you're not drawing a card every round, you're going to deck fail because you're not cycling properly. So keep that in mind when you're doing this rematch. But for example, if we get an elephant first, you're doing V-Plague just so you take less damage. You don't even have to V-Plague. It's just a safety net. And then we're using Dragon Blade. We're using some Elemental Blades. Basically a bunch of blades. And then once you get to round 4, basically these 3 people have to hit with a school specific hit. So we're going to be packing those in treasure cards, of course. And he'll tell you like what schools you have to hit with, which you see in the background, what I mean. So you hit in those corresponding, and then you just hit with the sirens and kill all of them. Now you should kill every time, even with tier 2 sirens. I know some people might be like, do I need max tier sirens? No, you do not. Tier 2 kills every time if you hit the stat cap for damage and pierce. If you're not hitting the stat cap for damage and pierce, yeah, you're not killing. I specifically made it around that, so you need at least hit the stat cap. And it's very easy to do as a storm. Yeah, like if people want me to, I can put the gear setup I use in the comments down below. But yeah, you basically have to make sure those 3 people have enough accuracy for 3 different schools, because most of their stuff is 100% other than those 3 school hits, because each person has to pack them. Because I tried making this strat where like one person carries everything, but there was issues like deck fail and the strat becoming too long and everything like that. So yeah, that's why we're having people carry different things, which will also, for this specific video, I even made deck setups for each person so you don't get lost of like, oh, who's carrying what or whatever. I will show you his deck setups as well, and hopefully that helps you as best as I can. I mean, the only thing other than that is I can just show you footage. But yeah, so depending on the form, just play certain cards. That's why, for example, like these, oh, if it's an elephant, lion, or spider, you're going to use V-Plague. But if it's a rhino, you are not using V-Plague and using Petrifaction, because you got to Petrifaction his supercharged blades off, and if you don't, you will get nuked. So there's that. And then of course, if it's a spider, you have to use Ice Dispel, because the Goliath can use Taunt, and if you don't dispel that Taunt, and let's say it's round 4, and you do not use weaknesses, or you do not use Petrifaction on basically TT in his spider form, yeah, GG. You will not, you basically will get nuked because he taunted you, you know? So that's why you have to pull TT first. If essentially Cam fix this, or whoever's working on this fight can fix that taunt on, or the sleep thing of the lion form, and make it 2 rounds, this should make this fight way more easier, because you can just pull the spider boss and you'll be fine. You'll always get turn priority, you'll never have to get nuked, and this fight would be drastically more easier. So hopefully, if anyone at KI is watching, fix the lion form so he stuns twice. Make him so it stuns twice instead of stuns once, and this fight should be a lot more easier. I think that's the only thing that's making me like not like this rematch, other than just taunt on the Goliath. But yeah. But yeah, hopefully this looks visually fine. I know it's a lot of writing, but if it's everyone's doing their own job, they should know what they're doing, and make sure you're drawing a card every time. But yeah, so specific forms, you do specific moves, you have specific blades, everything's in your deck. It's just that you're doing them at specific rounds, and it's pretty straightforward. So you guys can look at the strat, take a picture, whatever you like. But now let's actually talk about the deck setups, because you guys are probably looking like this and be like, what is my deck setup? There's no way I'm carrying this many cards, whatever. But it's really not that hard. Here's the deck setups. I will obviously, like I said, put these in the Discord, but at the moment they're just in video format for now. So if you need to look at these, take a screenshot, do whatever. But here we have our death. We'll go one by one. Our death is rocking Ice Mastery. They're packing, of course, the Ice Dispel. They're carrying Petrifaction, V-Plague, and LE Blade for a specific form, which you can go back and look at this light at. And then Dark Pack, which you're always using. Then they have all these cards. They have their fire hits, they have their death hits, and their balance hits, because depending on the form, and there's like certain orders, they're not completely random. I think a lot of people thought they were completely random, but there's 3 sets of lines that he does for his elephant form, so it can either be three of them. But yeah, you're carrying those, and you're also carrying Threefold Fever, which we'll get to after we talk about the deck setups of like, where am I getting all this TC, Almond? Like, I'm don't worry, I will carry you through this entire video. But yeah, that's the deck setup for the death. And make sure you're rocking Ice Mastery and making sure that you have enough accuracy for your fire and your balance spells. Not really death, because these cats are 100%, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Then we have our balance. They're rocking 2 weaknesses, of course. They're rocking their blade, and then of course they have a specific blade, which you can check in the other slide and the other part of the video. They're having Donate Power, but it's specifically the one that has 3 pips, which you can get on your amulet. And then Dark Pact item card from a pet. You can get those pretty easily. Just make sure it's the one that gives you 2 blades and not 1. And then of course their side deck is essentially a couple hits, because for the elephant form. And then LE Diffuse, you can use Threefold Fever, but I prefer to use LE Diffuse. But yeah, it's just better. But that's the balance setup. And then, oh, they do have a wand hit, so keep that in mind as well. Specifically life. And then if we go to this third person, it can be anybody. I specifically used a storm in my runs, but that's only because we only had another storm. We didn't have another person that can run that other school. But yeah, you can run this as anybody. Just make sure you have these 2 specific hits in main deck. You can rock a city staff, so that's how you get the 2 Myth Wand hits. The Star Blade, Ellie Blade, Storm Blade. Make sure that Storm Blade is from a pet, and then these other two are just item cards. With the update like a while ago, we did get the addition of tier jewels that give item cards. So we're using full utilization of that feature and using it in this video. So make sure you're doing that. And then your side deck, of course, you got the Storm Cats, which have higher accuracy. And then of course we have our Ice Beetle with threefold fever, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then we have our two weaknesses, of course. And then we move on to our Storm Hitter. This is essentially your main deck. Make sure you have Reinforced from your pet. Make sure you have Amulet Stormblade, and then you carry two regular Stormblades. And then of course you have B-Path Sirens. Make sure it's the bottom path. And then you have Turmoil Oni, and then you have Disarm, which we'll talk about as well. That's specifically just for the spider form, so it just depends on turn order. And then your side, you're carrying a Storm Shield and a Tower Shield. Storm has it the best when it comes to deck setup. You're not really cycling, you're always clicking the same view cards. It's just these other people have to like kind of protect you and cycle depending on quarterback. Now, where do I get this TC? Now, you can get these treasure cards in Mirage. Mirage, there's literally a vendor that gives you black cats that are 100% accuracy, so you won't fizzle your death hits at all. And then of course we have the Storm Cats, which you can get from here. The Fire Cats and Ice Cats, they have less accuracy. I think the Fire Cat is exactly the same, but the Ice is like less accuracy, I believe. That's why we're using Beetles instead. So that's where you get those. And then of course, if you guys saw, we were using threefold fevers. You can get those from the PvP crafter. You can just exchange it for Azoth. That's the only other way of getting it. I didn't know what else to use, kind of make it more user friendly. Of course, you could have the person in slot 1 use Ellie Diffuse or something like that gives essentially 3 neg charms, whatever, like just essentially anything that uses 3 neg charms. But I just used a death, so threefold fever just made more sense. And then of course we have another threefold fever in the other person's deck. So that's how you get these treasure cards. Just pretty straightforward. Just go to Mirage, go to Yalkaha Mountain, and there's literally a vendor inside of one of the houses, and you can just talk to him. He'll just give you the treasure cards, and that's about it. But I'll play some footage in the background while I talk for a little bit. But yeah, this rematch does require a lot of like deck cycling. If you don't know how to cycle your deck, you're kind of just chalked. And I know some people are just resetting until they get like the spider. You can do that. It's just that I didn't want to waste time resetting every time. I'd rather just have a strat that's relatively consistent. So that's why I just took the time out of my day and made my own strat, because I've seen some slides, like I said, they're like 10 rounds, 11 rounds, 12 rounds, but I'm like, there's no way. So luckily we got it to like a 6 to 7 round. The only time it's a 7 round, like I said, is if you get a spider when he comes back alive. That's the only time. Now, if you get any other form, it should be a 6 round. It realistically should be a 6 round. But it's really easy, trust me. I think just coming up with the strat was way more difficult than actually doing the strat. You guys are given like basically everything written to you, while I had to actually like cook up something, and like I sat there doing Tse-Tse so much, and it definitely was not fun. I'm glad that, you know, I got it done. I don't have to go do this rematch ever again, unless someone I might do it again just once on my other characters, to be honest, just for the gold key. But beyond that, I am not doing this ever again till some things get changed in this fight. Either the line, like I said, needs to be like the changes that I would make if I had the opportunity to was either take off the taunt in the Goliath. He does not need taunt, because then I wouldn't have to use Ice Dispel and carry that, or make it so the lion, whenever you hit him, he stuns twice instead of once, because stunning him once, you basically lose to turn order, and you have to play around that. So I kind of don't like that, because if they made it so he stuns twice, you can pull one of the other bosses instead of Tse-Tse, and this will make it drastically more easier, because you won't lose the turn priority if it's a Rhino, because if the Rhino form is first, he can kind of just King Art somebody, and if it's your hitter, you're dead. You're getting hit with like a 10k King Art, depending on his pips, of course. So that's happened to me, and that's kind of annoying, and I lose to turn order, and there's not much I can do, right? So other than that, just the challenge challenge boss rematch, I mean, pretty straightforward. Just pay attention to which form it is, and you just play accordingly. If you do not have a thing where it's like, oh, if elephant, if lion, etc. Just play the card accordingly. Storm obviously has it the best role because you're just kind of passing for the most time or just using the same cards over and over. But the other three people have to play depending on which form he is. And of course, when it is the spider form, when you ever kill his first form and then he turns into a spider, realistically you just need to make sure at least one person lives. If everyone dies except one person, you still get reward, you still win. Just make sure you protect the person that has the most HP and they can live, and you get your loot that way. But the spider, I feel like, is still, even though it's 7 rounds, you're basically passing, so it feels like 6 rounds anyways, because you're passing for the most part, because there's not really much you can do unless you want to carry more or different types of weaknesses, like, you know, there's a muzzle and like all these other stuff too. So yeah, but that is it for this video, guys. I know this one's going to be longer than all the other ones, but that's because there's a lot of if and or but situations in this fight. But like I said, if you want to, you can do the flea strat, but I just don't want to like keep resetting if I don't get one form. So that's why I specifically made a strat where it's like you play no matter what, you pack everything, you just cycle, and you're fine. Just remember to draw every time you use a card, because if you're not doing that, you will most likely deck fail and you would accidentally discard something that you're not supposed to. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed me talking about TT. But like I said, the other rematch video should not be this long. I think this video might be like a 20-minute video or something like that. But yeah, it should not take this long. But yeah, like I said, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will eventually put these in the Discord, but for now, just look back at the video, of course. And yeah, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. Be on the lookout for all the other rematch videos, and then of course I'll do like one final video of the arc 2, just talking about my final thoughts about all of them. So yeah, that is it, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.